mighty ocean, your eyes see everything. The slightest of your motions can make the continent swing. Yet in all your might and glory, vanished from the skies, leaving just another story, this many man-made lies. They tell us how you fell from the sky.
All right, good morning, America. Happy Hump Day. You're listening to the Free American Hour. I am Clay Douglas. My guest today is Mike Frye of the Oathkeepers, and I believe we've met, haven't we, Mike?
I believe we have.
Mike, the last time you were down here in Arizona, it was on behalf of the Marine that was shot by the SWAT team for walking down his hallway and happened to be carrying a gun. And now you're coming down on August 27th to Quartzsite, Arizona. Now, you know, I've been through Quartzsite many times, and I have a hard time understanding why anybody, except a bunch of rockhounds, would go to Quartzsite. But what's happening there? What's happening there?
Well, you're exactly right about Quartzsite. My experience with Quartzsite in the past is if you didn't look left, if you didn't look right, you wouldn't even know it was there. But since probably I would guess early May time frame, mid-May time frame, different folks around the state started taking interest into what was going on in the Quartzsite area. And that's how I became aware of it and what was going on down there. Now, what's going on down there is a combination of a couple of things. It hasn't happened overnight. It's nothing new, actually. It's actually been going on for years. As best I've been able to trace it back to 1991. And it's just now starting to come to light. There's a gentleman there by the name of Mayor Ed Foster. And this gentleman ran a campaign for city mayor solely on clearing up the corruption in Quartzsite. And since he's been mayor, the gentleman has received more resistance than if you were trying to cut a rock with a butter knife. There's no way he can successfully, without some type of confrontation, get the corruption basically exposed. There's been embezzlement, as far as I can tell, as far as a lot of people can tell. $250,000 a year has been gone out to 10 quote-unquote employees. Nobody happens to know who these employees are. Nobody happens to know their names. Nobody's ever seen them. So, but that's $250,000 a year. My math is correct. That totals about $5 million to date. And
how much was that again? How much was that again that's missing?
$250,000 annually since '91. So if my math is correct, about $5 million.
Incredible. Now, the mayor wants to straighten this up, but he's being opposed by the police chief and the 10 of the police in that town, Quartzsite, have spoken out against the police chief on behalf of the mayor. Is that correct? Or can you give me some more details?
That is correct, and like I said, it hasn't happened overnight. The police officers down there that filed the complaint against the chief of police of the Arizona Post in the state of Arizona compiled and observed all the information that they could over a period of time, and finally all 10 came together, the highest ranking being a sergeant on the police force, and in fact an investigator, special investigator. And they have successfully put in a complaint against the chief, of course alleging him of many, I read the affidavit, it's quite long, and it's quite intense and quite in-depth of all the complaints they really have against the chief there. But the chief, in conjunction with several of the city town council members, have been in cahoots now for quite some time, and they literally have created Quartzsite, turned Quartzsite into what I would consider to be in England of the 1700s. It's what I would be considered to be tyranny at its finest. I spoke with many of the people down there, and a great deal of them live in fear, intimidation, live under intimidation. It's sad what the folks down there of this little town have to endure, really.
Mike, this information is going in the story that I'm working on right now. I just came from the Tesla convention over in Albuquerque, and there are all these people there, very knowledgeable, that have studied and followed Tesla. You know, and in some ways duplicated some of the patents that you've never seen the light of day. It was incredible how advanced we were, our science was 100 years ago. And I'm asking people there, well, you know, have you done any of this Tesla stuff? Have you built a magnetic motor? And people said, yes, yeah, we built a magnetic motor, but we're afraid they will kill us, so we took it apart. We tore it apart because we're afraid. We're afraid. So there, it's like this whole mass of fear is sweeping the country. Just what was done down here in Tucson to the Marine, shot walking down his hallway with a gun.
Yeah.
And now, how is this affecting the people of Quartzsite? I mean, besides losing $250,000 of a very small town's income every year.
Well, most of the people there that have opposed any type of political opposition to the town council and to the chief have endured everything from surveillance to intimidation to false arrest. The list is endless. One gentleman down there, in fact, had his weapons confiscated from him because he called a city council member a turd, and the city council member took that as a, quote, terrorist threat, had an injunction from the Justice of the Peace imposed upon him, and was ordered to turn over his weapons to the local law enforcement. Now, of course, the Justice of the Peace backpedaled on that. Here this past week, we had a small little victory. She realized that it was kind of crazy to do that, I think, and overturned that. And of course, he was, you know, giving back his weapons and his full citizenship, if you will. And but that's just one example of one person. There's been other people who have ran against them, the different ones there, and it's important to know that all these people that are sitting on the city town council were appointed by a mayor many years ago. I want to use the word appointed very carefully because they were not elected. Now, they ran in elections and since have been, quote-unquote, re-elected to these positions. but that was only after they become entrenched. Now, it's also very important to note that the people who have run against them have always missed by a small margin. In fact, speaking to one gentleman, I can't think upon his name right now, who ran against Councilman Winslow, and this gentleman only lost by 26 votes. So, you know, it's just amazing to see that they've not been uprooted when so many people in the town, or the city of Quartzsite, I mean, are obviously on the side of the real law. The mayor, those 10 police officers that are, quote, on paid leave absence right now, or on duty at their house, or however you want to say it, because my understanding is they're not officially on paid leave of absence, they're assigned to their home. So I don't know how that...
now, what, these 10 officers, these 10 officers have been assigned by the police chief to patrol their homes?
Exactly. So I don't know how that best services the people of Quartzsite, but that's apparently how the chief feels that he can best protect his community. So it's pretty sad because to see this in such a small town, and of course, I'm sure this type of corruption is elsewhere within our country. It's obviously a little bit harder to find, though, in the bigger cities. It's easier to conceal it, I believe, is what it amounts to.
Yes,
but,
you control if you control the newspapers and the television stations in the big city, then you have no access to this information at all. I didn't see too many television cameras when you marched down here in Tucson, did you?
No, I sure didn't. No, in fact, I wasn't actually personally there. I was in the helping stage of getting the Oathkeepers and different organizations and patriots involved, of course. But I actually did speak with the county attorney that came to a determination that the SWAT team, quote, was justified in their shooting of Jose Guerrero. So I have had a hands-on dealings with that situation down there. But somebody's got to have their hands on it, and certainly somebody has to say something and give a voice of justice to this Marine that was, in my opinion, murdered in his own home. So, but yeah, that's one of those things that's been continuing on. That's a very sad incident, very sad story. It really got my heart wrenched in the very beginning. And of course, going from that experience to what's going on in Quartzsite, obviously when I was made aware of what was going on in Quartzsite, of course I was coming off of the fuel from Jose Guerrero, and that's why Quartzsite became a, don't want to use the word target of mine, but it became a issue for me to get involved with, because Quartzsite's small enough in comparison to Tucson, where if we are successful in exposing the corruption of Quartzsite, hopefully we can prevent any type of Jose Guerrero scenarios in the Quartzsite area. And of course, obviously, that's a very important objective.
How many of the police in Quartzsite? How big is the police force, and how many of the police officers are going to be standing on the side of the police chief and against their fellow officers?
Well, there's the police force. My understanding had a total of 16. Out of the 16, 10. Quote-unquote disgruntled employees, i.e. police officers, filed their complaint. So when 10 out of 16 come forward and stay true to their oath that they took, and stay true to being peace officers in their community, that tells, you know, a lot of people, including myself, that, hey, you know, maybe it's not the police officers that have a problem down here in Quartzsite. Maybe it's the chief and a few police officers that really have the problem in Quartzsite. Because for 10 of the, that's 75% or 70% of the police force standing together united and coming together against what they believe in their hearts to be injustices committed by the chief of police as well as their fellow officers.
Now, what the population? I mean, obviously they're being terrorized here. They're being torn, you know, both ways. And but the mayor's still the mayor, right? Can't the mayor fire the police chief?
Well, you know, that is a very great issue right now, created, of course, by the city of Quartzsite Town Council there. From my understanding, yes, the mayor is still mayor. As far as I know, the law, technically he could fire them. However, he's been stripped of all his powers, and whatever that means.
How was that accomplished, Mike?
Through a town city, through a town hall meeting. They raised a promotion, voted yay, and that was pretty much it. The mayor was deemed no longer pretty much the power of the town. It was pretty much handed over to the chief. Now, how that isn't considered, I understand that it's not an official state of emergency. I understand that it's not quote martial law, but how that isn't martial law or a state of emergency is beyond me. So there's a huge gray area there that obviously they've got an attorney down there that's advising them. I don't know how they're able to do what they're doing. I know that they, for an example, they were in violation of a restraining order that was made against them. They were instructed to rehire these 10 fine police officers, and of course they haven't. Put them back to work, I mean. And so, I mean, this is just one of those things where, you know, tyranny has entrenched itself, basically, in Quartzsite, and when tyranny has entrenched itself, of course, it doesn't see the wrong that they're in. The rest of us, unfortunately, do get to see the wrong that they're in, and it's sad. It's extremely sad these people are living in these conditions.
Mike, with the this is a little off topic here, but with the induction of the fusion centers into all of the major cities and the police departments, and that, to me, that looks like what happened in Tucson. These SWAT teams are basically hit squads. I mean, they're trained to kill by the FBI, and now we've got the fusion centers in there, which is designed to kind of expand on the multi-jurisdictional task force that they introduced years ago to give federal control to the police. At least that's my opinion.
Well, you're hitting on a very valuable point here, and a lot of people overlook exactly what you're saying. And the fact of the matter is that there is a thing out there that our federal government has in place that was put in there by the former administration, President Bush, and it's called the Patriot Act. Now, that Patriot Act, obviously, those that voted in favor of extending it, in my opinion, didn't read it. Because a lot of them that voted in favor of extending it are, quote, Tea-Party patriots, constitutional conservatives. It's always been my opinion that a constitutional conservative wouldn't vote against the Constitution, and the Patriot Act is neither constitutional or is it patriotic. for that matter.
And it basically gives the Homeland Security the right to change the rules right in the mid-game, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, it totally gives them. If you read specifically Section 802, okay, and the definition that's given in Section 802 of the Patriot Act, everyone. It don't matter if you're a priest, never committed a crime. It don't matter if you're a 13-year-old boy who likes to build model tanks in his bedroom. Everyone, according to the definition of the Section 802, is a terrorist. And they don't have to have probable cause. They don't even have to have any red flags going on. All they got to do is go, well, he just, that's some type of a threat or whatever, and they lump them right into that Section 802, and now everybody's a target.
Mike, that's exactly the article that I'm working on right now, because 20 years ago, after what happened at Waco, I started the militias around the country, and suddenly I became a terrorist. Clay Douglas started the militias. Well, yes, I damn sure did, and I did it in the governor's office. Wasn't exactly a terrorist organization. Governor Gary Johnson, we met in his office, and we talked about it, and we talked about why we were doing it, and we worked for him. But suddenly we became terrorists. Clay Douglas became a terrorist. Now they've done the same thing and are doing the same thing to Oath Keepers right now. The police chief.
Oath Keepers. They're doing it to everybody.
To everybody. Yes.
Everybody. Boy Scouts, American Legion, your local priest, your local minister, anybody. Anybody that disagrees with blatant tyranny, or anyone that disagrees with how the government operates as far as law enforcement goes, or federal law enforcement goes, or anything like that, they're automatically labeled, they're automatically put on a list, they're automatically surveilled. And that Patriot Act allows them to do anything they want to do without going to a judge, without getting a search warrant. All they have to do is just think about it, and they can do whatever they want to do. They can tap people's phones, they can tap people's computers, they can bug your house, they can bug your car, whatever, and they do it. I guarantee you they do it. They've been doing it for years, and they do it freely. But then you have, sadly, on the other hand, could you imagine? Let me just stop you for a second. Could you imagine if Richard Nixon had the Patriot Act at his disposal? Just imagine that for a moment. He got caught with his hand in the cookie jar. They threatened to impeach him, and he quits. Now that the Patriot Act is around, Richard Nixon would have been legal in doing what he was doing. Watergate would have been a legal thing, according to the Patriot Act, because they were an option. They were an opposition to that.
Mike, in my film True Face of FEMA, I filmed the first Homeland Security meeting, and it almost seemed like a science fiction film. In case of a single outbreak of smallpox in a major metropolitan area, we'll need 400,000 well-armed, well-trained, organized, disciplined troops to control the American people, because some of them just won't follow orders.
Well, thank God, when all of us stood in that line that day and took our oath of the Constitution, if you were like me, with in a room of about 40 other people in their underwear, we rose up our right hand. I had a Navy individual that gave me, I can't remember his rank, and shame on me for not remembering it, but anyway, he administered the oath to us, and I remember specifically him passing back and forth in front of the folks, reminding everyone, yes, you're taking an oath to the Constitution. But with that oath comes a very huge responsibility. You have the right. The duty and the obligation and responsibility and moral fortitude, if you will, to refuse an unlawful order. And I remember that Navy personnel going back and forth, drilling that into us before he asked us to raise the right hand and swear an oath of the Constitution. He made that quite clear. I'm sure that still happens today. I know that happened to everyone that I've spoken to, and that's ever taken the oath to it. And, the fact of the matter is that the oath is to the Constitution. The oath isn't to the government. The oath isn't to the Democrat Party or the Republican Party. The oath isn't to a person, a politician, nor is it to the president. The oath is to the Constitution. Period.
I've made the comment for many years. I got out of the Army, but there was no expiration date on that oath. And I read the Constitution. I read the Bill of Rights. I also can read the Communist Manifesto. And
yes.
Every plank on the Communist Manifesto is intact now. What do you do, Mike? What do you do when you realize that you're in an active war that's been going on for at least 100 years? And this war behind the scenes is the reason for every other war out there. And maybe I've said, who won the Cold War? I mean, we've got communism right here in America, right here in Quartzsite, Arizona. With Marxism.
Yeah.
And what do you do when you realize that your government has become communist? And suddenly, I guess that makes us, anytime a communist regime takes over a country, they go after three classes of people in order. They go after the farmers first because they don't want you to be able to feed yourself or profit from your land, unless you're, that's Monsanto's, no food that we don't own. And second, they go after the intelligentsia. That's anybody that's a college professor or ditch digger that's smart enough to know what the hell they're trying to pull on us. And
are you thinking the same thing that I'm thinking? Perhaps a designed recession to bring those people that have that second class to their financial needs, so they do not have the financial backing.
Absolutely, that's exactly what they've done to me. I've had my magazines. I've been doing this for 40 years. I had one of my magazines sold after my accident, which may have just been a coincidence that George Bush had allowed the NSA to tap everybody's phones. And on May 20th, I call my son. Where do you need me to go next, son? Where are you, Dad? I'm on the north side of Phoenix, man. Oh, I'm at Sacred Skin Tattoo Parlor. Oh, go down 24th Street to McDowell, turn left, go to the wheel shop. It's right there. Okay, son, see you. 2 blocks before I got to McDowell, I get T-boned by a woman with no driver's license, no insurance, and a borrowed car.
How fitting.
Yeah. So they've gone after me ever since economically. Oh, you can't advertise with Clay. He's a racist. He's an anti-Semite. He's a and they've done the same thing to the Minutemen. When the Minutemen got out here, they tried to turn Chris Simcox into some kind of criminal.
Yeah.
And they tried to call all the people that wanted to go on the border racist. And now, by the way, the Oathkeepers are going to Quartzsite, but also the Sons of Liberty Riders. So you got bikers and Oathkeepers, and I happen to be both, coming to Quartzsite to back up the people, the legitimate government,